Cheers.
Cheers.
I'm not
Cheers to
drinking
you.
wine tonight, but
Yes, that's all right. We'll give you that. All right. Welcome to Gen Zoomers, real talk on just about anything. I am Sharon.
and I'm Julie.
Julie is a Gen Xer and I'm a Boomer, and we are best friends. We're really excited to feature this spirited real estate professional. One of Jules' greatest gifts is connecting people to their dreams. She's been making connections with and between people for most of her career. Her entrepreneurial spirit dates back 4 generations of women who have been investing in real estate. You can say that this spirit is embedded in her DNA. If you hire Jules to your team, you can be assured of a dedicated, purposeful, collaborative realtor. Yes, Hi, Jules.
Hey.
Cheers to you, Jules.
She's got the doubler over there.
This is
That's
the clinker.
Oh, okay.
Aha.
Okay.
We're really happy to have you on the show.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here.
And we look forward to soaking up some of your real estate experience here.
Well, cool.
So prepare for a lot of questions.
Excellent. Well, I'm just looking forward to chatting with y'all. It's so good to see you.
No, it's good to see you too. It is. It's great to see you.
Thank you. I know, what a trip, right?
Yes.
All of it.
Nice trip. Well, let's jump in. Julie, we want to know, you're in real estate, and we want to know how you got into real estate, a little bit of what that background is.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sure, I'll jump right in. Well, yeah, I about 4 years ago now, I had a career transition from working at the college, where we all know I was last working at the college, to finding myself being downsized out of the college, sort of a common refrain for some folks. And I had to do something else, and I always knew I would do real estate. It was already in there. I wanted to be a realtor. I enjoyed the idea of investing. I'd seen it as a family model. So that's how I landed in becoming a realtor. That was like, what am I going to do now to make money? So it was like a hobby that I already did all the time anyway. And I thought, well, that seems like something I can do. So I popped into I did the realtor school. I studied which brokerages to go to. I met with some team folks and some other brokerages, and then popped into Keller Williams, and that was closing in on 3 years ago. And I've been having a really good time and being very challenged at the same time since then.
Call out for us some of your greatest challenges.
Well, I think
without taking days to. No.
Yeah, right. Well, I got to save some for the book, right? The hilarious misadventures of Jules. So I think the biggest thing has been about expectations, and then communication, and then having folks surprise me positively sometimes. You know, this cute little family that we had to find them something that evoked Tokyo a little bit, because that's where she was from. And it happened like that because we got so clear about expectations up front. And then other times, and that was after I'd learned that we weren't so clear, and then we went on these crazy wild goose chases, and you know, that's been interesting. And having a little bit on the funny side of having people say to me, "You're my realtor and you should jump when I call," you know, so funny things like that, like, oh, I didn't realize people actually said that, but they do. So that was interesting. And so there's just been some amusing things. Learning about 1031 exchanges, which is a type of investment that is super stressful, that I learned about I had a client that was doing one, and now I'm doing one. So those have just been, my biggest thing I've learned is expectations. If I can clarify expectations up front and get clear about what my client is looking for, and then probably divest myself of my own expectations, then we have a better time.
You might think you've clarified your expectations, but your clients haven't, have they?
Right. Well, it's also, you know, it's that whole thing about some people, you think you're seeing the same thing in your head, but you're not. And so I think language and communication is huge, because I have to be able to actively listen, ask good questions,
Right.
hear what they're saying, then hear what they're not saying, and then reframe and say it back. So I think that's a lot of what I've learned. And then when we actually go out in the field, it becomes ever clearer, because everyone thinks they have a notion. Or once you start your mortgage planning process, because you think you know how you're going to pay for it all, and then you start a mortgage planning process and you're like, oh, either I have options, or oh, I didn't have the option I thought. So, you know, so there's kind of an interesting, and then that gets ever clearer. But looking at houses, I have a client right now, a buyer, who we've talked about where she might be within a 100-mile radius. So I've given her directions to go off and explore, and it's been great. One of the benefits of COVID time is we can take little road trips in our little isolation chambers, you know, and so that's one of the great things. And what she said back was, it was so clarifying to actually go out there and look at my price point in the place where I thought I wanted to go, which I realized maybe I don't. So sometimes we're driving together and we're doing that at the same time, and sometimes my clients, if we get refined and more refined, I think it's helpful for clients to go off by themselves and have their own process, driving by and thinking and talking. And then we actually can make a strategy to find and buy the house they want, or the
I think
land
that's
they
really
want.
smart. I know, just as a home buyer myself, we prefer to sort of act on our own volition a little bit, get some guidance, but we'll just go and we'll just kind of do our own surveying, and
Yeah.
then we'll get together instead of wasting both our times.
Well,
I
yeah.
have been with agents where we've drove up to a house, and I remember saying, I'm not going to go look at that place. And then everybody gets really quiet in the car, and they said, but we made an appointment. Let's just go see it anyway. That's not
Right.
me. I did, okay,
Right.
let's go see it. But yeah.
But you
I think
knew.
that's smart. Yeah.
You knew, right? Well, I think that's really true. And once you go in a few, you really start to know. You know what I mean? So you might have to go in that one that from the curb. We've definitely driven up before and done that with, like, I'll roll up and be the one that says, do we really have to go in this house? You know, and my client will say, no, I'm glad you said that. No, I'm not okay with this. Like, good. Oh, I'm so glad we're on the same page.
Right.
So, yeah.
Well, give us some of your greatest accomplishments.
Oh my gosh. Well, I think the greatest accomplishment is when the client is happy. That's the simplest way to put it. But even more than that, when they know and I know that something really shifted for them right then, you know, that they've invested in themselves this way. They've found the perfect place that was going to be perfect for their family. They've found their second home or investment home. When all the hard work and the strategy, and sometimes there are tears because you don't get what you want, or things are hard, you know, and then sometimes it's super easy. You just waltz into the first one and you're like, well, I'll take it. And everything just flows. But I think the main thing is when I get the feedback from my clients of like, wow, this really did change our lives. I've heard that, so satisfying. Or this really did work out. Like you said, we were so disappointed the 3 times we didn't get what we wanted, but you're so right. It did all shake out in the end, because we like what we got more than we would have liked anything else. So there are these like little miracle moments like that, that make the harder times when you don't get what you want. Because as a realtor, it's a business fraught with rejection, you know. So I'm the one in front, and I'm the negotiator. It's all good. It's fine. Yeah. And I think I said recently to someone that negotiation to me is being comfortable with conflict. So that's my job. My job is to be comfortable with conflict. I don't look at it as conflict. I look at it as a conversation we're having, but it might be uncomfortable, you know. So that's my job out front, and the client doesn't have to do that part. I'm doing that on their behalf. So when we're able to win the negotiation and get them the thing that changes their lives, that's really, really sad.
You had a couple just recently that did something. I wish I could remember what you said. It was just so heartwarming to you. Tell us that.
Yes, that was the sweet little family. I mean, I have a lot of great stories, but this was we were talking about the little family that first time home buyers, and they walked into an open house I had. They lived in an apartment in a neighborhood where I was selling a condo, and they walked in and looked around, and they had 2 adorable little girls, and we chatted for a few minutes, and they said, well, we're not really ready. We're just looking. You had your sign out. We just walked in, but we'd like to buy a house one day. And I said, well, let's just chat for 5 minutes about it. So we stood there, talked for 5. I gave them my contact info. I asked them if I could get theirs because I like to be very proactive, because when people, and what occurred was I forwarded them, I texted them, makes it real easy, a mortgage broker that I really trust and love, and made an introduction, and they all chatted, and they came back to me and said, oh my gosh, you were so right. We actually could afford to buy now. We didn't think we could. We're so glad you introduced us. And she's from Tokyo originally, and he's from here, and they had a little bit of a different perspective about what they wanted in a house, but she wanted some density and closeness. They wanted to be somewhere secure.
Oh.
They stumbled. We had been talking. I'd been sending them searches. This is when it's a beautiful thing. And they went past a condominium, a cute, adorable 1940s, a condominium that I had sent them as part of a search, and they loved it. And we went running over there as fast as we could and saw it and made an offer. And within 24 hours, it was theirs. And they're the folks who came back to me and said, you have changed our lives. If we hadn't walked in that house that day and talked to you, the thing we've been talking about, we would have put off and put off, but put off. And they found truly the perfect little environment for their little family. So I get goosebumps again, because that's what matters. Those are the accomplishments, because I understand how powerful the moment is for them. Both, one, they have the home they want and love, and two, financially, it's such a smart move, especially for, a young family and what they're trying to accomplish next. So.
Tell us, what qualities do you believe one must possess to make a living in real estate?
Fortitude. We'll start with that. Fortitude is good. It's a really interesting gig. I felt like I've been sort of building to this through just different strengths and things I've learned over the years, because it kind of is the whole package of everything. I am my own business as a realtor. I'm an independent sole proprietor. So, I'm everything. I'm marketing, I'm collections, I'm running over there with open house supply. I'm a production assistant to the director. You know what I mean?
Sounds like you're a little bit of a therapist too.
Well, there's that too. There's the communicator. There's the whole piece, right? It runs the gamut. So, fortitude, a sense of variety, a desire to have a dynamic sort of sense of dynamism, because it changes every day. At the same time, it can be the same and a little bit tedious. But I think that fortitude, strong sense of confidence and faith in one's abilities, have a little cushion in the bank is super helpful, because it takes a while for money to come for a realtor. And we work for a very long time without any pay. We work on the promise of future pay. So for a realtor, that is very hard for a lot of people to do that. But we work on the promise of future pay. So I will work for 6 months or a year with someone, and we won't find the house. We won't be able to secure the deal. It might take that long before I ever get paid. So you have to be able to have the resources behind you, or a person. I mean, it helps to have a community of support as well. But that's a big one that I think is a shock to a lot of realtors. And it's why most of us don't make it past 2 years, unfortunately, because you have to be able to survive. And I'm finding, as I go into my third year, I can see everyone says if you can get past 2, as you go into 3, you're probably fine. So that's how I feel right now. Like, oh, good. Okay. I can see an upward trend. But that's why I say fortitude. It works on every level. Emotional fortitude, financial fortitude, personal fortitude, of faith in oneself, sense of fun. It's fun. It's crazy. People, you're dealing with people all the time. So if you like people, it's great.
Right.
And then there are a lot of folks who are more introverted, and they do well too, because they just have a different style than me. I'm very extroverted. So I'm a very much soar with your strengths kind of person. So there are things that that personality is way better at than me. And then there are things that I do really well over here, the tap dancing and the talking I'm great at, but there are things I'm not great at over here. So I think all personality types can fit, but you have to have a certain level of resilience. There's a lot of rejection. So you have to have resilience to get back up and keep going. So.
Okay. That's good advice. Really good advice. So hard lessons you learned selling a home.
Oh my gosh, so many. Ooh, Lord, there are many. I think it's much less stressful if you know what you're looking for when you go in. So you've got your money dialed in, you've got your mortgage plan. I'm a big fan of mortgage planning. So it's not just going to get a mortgage, it's actually researching different types of mortgages and figuring out the structure of your loan and how much down, and are there any down payment assistance programs that you can access. And so it's very important to speak with a couple of different mortgage brokers, in my opinion, to see what they have to offer, because that's how you pay for it. And the structure of how we pay for it is super important. It can help you buy a little bit more house if you can have a little bit less interest, for instance, or perhaps you can put a little bit more down. But you can see with a mortgage broker how mortgage planning works. So you know, a little bit more this month for this house over that house. Super important, because then it takes that anxiety out of it. And then the second piece is just getting clearer, ever clearer about the houses themselves, the environment. It's not just a house. What is it? What is the environment in which you want to live, and what do you need in that environment? And now everybody's asking themselves, the COVID time is asking, we're all asking ourselves that question about need. You know, what do I really need? And a lot of people are choosing to move. I just was chatting with someone the other day who's moving from I'm not sure how old they are. I'm going to say in their 50s. And they're moving from a beautiful big Tudor house in Eastmoreland near the golf course to Newport, to the beach, to a little second house, vacation house they have. One kid works down in Newport now, and another kid is doing something else somewhere else. So this couple, and the words he said to me was, we don't need all this stuff anymore. Yeah. And it's the same thing that everyone, so they're seriously downsizing. Lots and lots of people are reflecting upon that and making those decisions, or choosing to go from the city out to where they have a little grass around them. My other client right now who's doing the road trips, that's her goal. She'd like a little acre of land. She doesn't care about the house. She wants the earth around her. So it's it's a super interesting time about what is happening with how we live and where we want to live. So I think those questions, the more we can refine, and that's part of my job, going back to the beginning, you asked me if I had questions, basically. It's all in the questions, right? The more we can refine the answer, the looking within and teasing out the answers, the quicker it happens.
You're about ready to close and you lose the closing. Have you had that happen?
Oh gosh, yes. The 2019 was a tough year. It seemed like that happened a lot. Yes, it does happen. And it is a very frustrating experience. And it happens, the last time it happened was due to the COVID virus just this past spring. I had someone right at the last second get nervous. But right after that, it was like 1 week of that. And then everyone went right back to buying again. So it's back to a buyer's market. But I've had it where it fell apart completely at the last second because a buyer pulled out. I've had it fall apart because the inspections, they didn't like what they saw there. And we couldn't reach a deal with the seller to somehow mitigate what was unpleasant about the inspection. I've had a couple of clients get complete cold feet and just kind of disappear, which is really weird and very, very hard, because if you're not talking, then you have no idea, you don't know how to solve the problem, right? So I've gotten some people that just got so freaked out, literally so freaked out that they just disappeared. So that's where I've learned a lot about communication. It goes back every single time I've learned these hard lessons. Ultimately, it is all back on me, right? That there was some question I didn't unearth. There was some nagging suspicion. Oh my God, I did have one, I'll tell you, that I knew because she wouldn't return my phone calls. She would only ever text me. She was an out-of-state client. And I knew, and I didn't listen to my gut and my value. I didn't listen to me. And it was young realtor, and I just am hustling. You're just hustling for the business. So I would say one of the things that's very clarifying also is a strong sense of self. And I think you get more and more of a sense of self as you do this job and as we mature, of course. But yeah, that's what I noticed I spent a lot of time with this client, and by the third day, I did actually say she did say, well, I don't want to waste your time. And I said, well, you actually have wasted my time.
Good for you.
But it's true.
Well, I couldn't even believe I said it. Well, it was because she bailed. We were supposed to write an offer on the third day of driving all over looking for a house. And she gave me a lot of reasons why she wasn't going to write the offer on the house we had seen. That was the perfect house that we agreed after looking at many, many, many miles all over Washington and Oregon. And that's the part and I knew it the whole time because she wasn't being definitive with me from a distance. And I let that happen. Right. So my lesson there was, if they're not calling me back, if they will not have a conversation with me except for on their terms, you know what I mean? Like if I call and say, I'd really like to have a phone call with you, before you get here, please give me a ring. I try the email, I try the text. And there was something about that I knew she was dismissing me and I didn't listen. Do you know what I mean? So I think,
it's a good,
on a personal, professional development level, these are the things that I learn.
right.
Is that the little voice that says this person won't phone you back and you're trying to conduct business.
Mm-hmm.
So this person, and I think it's a challenge sometimes for realtors. I think that this person looked at me as just a house shower, that this was an HGTV moment for her. She was coming in from Pennsylvania, kicking around. She might move to town, but that was not how she framed up the conversation. So that was the challenge that I learned, right?
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't clear enough up top. I was just too excited to have a new client and referred by a client. And I thought she was a grown up and we were serious because I did ask very pointedly. And she said, I will be buying a house when I come to town. If we find the right one, I'll be placing an offer. Terrific. I'd love to help you. So that's the kind of challenge that I find the most debilitating because it feels so personal. And
Certainly.
I've had to get more, I'd had to get a little tougher, but a little, I don't even know the right words. I can't take it personally. I just have to turn my attention back to the next client.
That seems to swing back to expectations again.
Oh, exactly.
Isn't it?
And my own on myself too, right?
Right.
There are women that I work with. One of the things that I say I do love about Keller Williams, my particular office has a very strong powerful women's presence. And there's a couple of women I work with, they're crystal clear. But they are just like, well, I'm probably not the right realtor to work with you. I'm going to give you another name, and as a young realtor, as a new realtor, as a person who there isn't a steady income already, so as I said, I work on the promise of future pay. So I felt like I had to grab everybody, run with everybody. And I did hear up top, you're going to get tired of that. You're going to get burnt out. You're going to have to refine a little bit. And so they're right. They were right. And so as I go into my third year, I think that is the thing I'm noticing the most. So let's say 18 was my first full year. 19 was my first full 12 months. And I felt like I got kind of beat up a lot. I didn't have as much success as I expected. And I had a lot of deals fall apart. So now in 20, that's where I refined. By the time I got to the end of 19, I was asking myself more questions of, who do I truly want to work with? What do I actually have to offer? And do the clients that I'm currently attracting appreciate what I have to offer? And if they don't, are they the clients I want to work with? And if not, what do I want to do with that? Right. So that's been very telling. And I found that I have refined and I'm attracting a different type of client now. Just by refining my own, clarifying inside myself. I don't think I'm sending out that energy a little bit of I'll take anybody. Right. Instead, it's like, I'm good and I'm doing my thing. And when I cross paths and I speak often about increasing wealth and investing in real estate and how powerful it can be. So when somebody jives with me, then I know we could probably do business together, That's who I'd like to do business with. If we're vibing on the same thing and we're both talking about it's not just a house and a beautiful HGTV moment. It's an anchor in your financial well-being, And I'm not a super girly realtor. I'm not all into the gifty thing and I don't like to bow up things and I don't want to go drop offs. And I mean, truly, I have definitely asked myself several times, am I sure that I'm right for this gig? Because I just kind of want to do some business. I want to have fun doing business. I want to.
Oh, I think you would be incredibly fun to be around. Are you kidding? No question. Yeah.
But I'm sure you do find, I'm curious about this, if the people you work with, and not everyone, of course, undervalue or overvalue their property, whether you're purchasing or selling.
True. Good point. Yes. It's all, as we were just discussing, it's kind of all very personal, right? The whole process. So ditto about your home, because your home is our homes are a reflection of us. And so particularly sellers, I find, tend to overvalue their home because they're very invested in it and it reflects them and they've done things.
It's their home.
And it's their home. And then buyers tend to undervalue their own buying power. So it's kind of an interesting, so buyers are overpricing their homes. I mean, sellers are overpricing or overvaluing, and buyers, of course, think everything should be less than it is. But then buyers are undervaluing their own buying ability. So when we can get them together, boom, it makes beautiful magic, you know? It's a huge disconnect. But usually what happens is we get folks in front of mortgage brokers, and they come back and say, wow, I could buy more house than I realized. So it's not nearly as much of a disconnect once we get them done. And then we talk with part of the being a great realtor is being able to communicate with the seller and show them through data. It's not even an opinion. It's not Zillow.
Right.
You know,
yes.
it's a comp.
Zillow.
It's data, right?
Exactly.
Right.
I always bring it in though. I will bring Zillow, Redfin, all the comps from all of those. Trulia is eStately. Why not? I pop them up and we use them as a comparison against the actual sales data. So then I pull all that, and that is usually sellers will hear us, and then we might make a plan. We will usually, what I like to do with a seller who feels like their house is maybe more than I think it is perhaps we start, if they're really committed, we can start where they want to, but we make a strategy about how at what point do we agree we're coming down? 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks. The market is really hot right now for buyers, sellers, because the buyers are snapping things up. There's not a lot of inventory. So right now, if anybody wanted to sell, it's an excellent time because there's more demand than we have houses. So houses are going for more, and they're going fast.
Are you getting multiple bidding offers too?
Yes, in Portland for sure. Anything good, anything decent, anything marketable is getting multiple offers because there's so little on the market. So it's an interesting time for sure. And that would be an excellent time if anybody is interested in tapping into their equity. That's another thing that I like to talk about. If anybody's been in their house for any period of time, 5, 7, 10 years, more than that, then they may have an equity position. So some money in the house savings account. And then now is a good time to refinance because money is so affordable. It's very, very cheap. It's 2%. It's crazy. 3%.
So there's a question I have, because we were talking about this. There's one thing where you go and you refinance, meaning you get your mortgage down. There's another where you refinance for an equity loan. Are you saying that, yes, are the equity loans also, the interest rates are very low right now?
That's correct. All the loans are very low right now. Now is an excellent time to borrow money on anything, honestly, because all money lending, the prime rate is so low that all money lending is low. So for me personally, I like to say, rather than go buy a new car, which I see so many new cars out on the road right now, I think everybody's out buying new cars, rather than go spend $500 a month on a car payment, why don't you spend $500 a month getting some cash out, refi, to buy an investment property, to have somebody pay you rent so that you can make a little bit of money, have a second property, hold that over time, and reinvest, do the same thing again later, refinance that property with equity and buy another investment property. So that's one of the things I happen to proselytize about and believe in. So I'm always out trying to convince people that it might be more fun to own a rental property than a new car.
So then this brings also up a point. What should a borrower expect to have in place to guarantee a loan now?
Well, we got to have, if you're self-employed, like myself, for instance, you have to have 2 years worth of income to show. So if you've just been self-employed for 1 year, you can't get a loan, right? A mortgage loan, but two years or more, you can get a mortgage loan. Everybody else, it's a very straightforward. I think right at the moment, even the credit score is only a minimum of 620. It may be 620 at some lenders, 640 at some others. So I think some people are very surprised that it's lower than they expected. You don't have to have great credit to get a mortgage. You have to have your taxes. So the things that a mortgage brokers want to take a look at is your pay stubs, your taxes, and 2 years worth of income, whether that's self-employed or otherwise. And that's about it, honestly, for what they actually need to look at. It's pretty straightforward. And you can get a pre-qualification really quickly with a lender, literally tap some things online.
How much cash do you have to put down on a home these days?
Well, it ranges anywhere from, if you're lucky and you can get some Home Now, some financing or grant money, it could be nothing. But that is harder and more competitive. There are income requirements, but they're higher than you might think. It's something like $71,000 for an individual. But mostly 3%, 3.5%, 3 to 5%. So those are kind of your standard amounts right now. There are some home down payment assistance programs or closing cost payment assistance programs that could pay, chip back in up to 3%. So you could almost be at a wash if you could get in. The Chenoa Fund is one of them, but these are things that mortgage brokers really know about. So I get an update every week from the mortgage brokers who fill us in about what programs they have and what's being offered right now. And the down payment assistance programs have been amazing. I really recommend that folks check into those. Those are for first-time home buyers, which if a person hasn't owned a home in 3 years, they're considered a first-time home buyer all over again. So that's kind of a little good thing to know,
I
right?
did not know
That's
that.
a good
So if
nugget to
someone's been
know.
renting for 3 years and haven't really plunged into the market, and it's such a good time, again, it's the time to buy a house.
Right.
Exactly. Yeah. So, and we let's see, you were talking about the mortgage. Oh yeah. And to be introduced to some mortgage brokers is great, but just I like to talk to other people. Who did you work with? Did you like them? Because again, it's not, to me, I like a more personal mortgage. If you're going to have a more complicated, but for any reason, say you're self-employed like myself, that's a little bit more complex for some folks. So I prefer a more experienced mortgage broker. Some people like to just go to Rocket Mortgage or something online, Lending Tree. If you are, an 800 credit score and you got 10% down or even 5% down, and you just know that's going to be straightforward, that might be great. But if anyone has any challenges, I always recommend if you could get somebody local, they can actually work with you, talk with you. They're not just plugging you into kind of canned products. Right. So that's an important thing. So it really isn't much to talk to a mortgage broker. You just need to know basically what's your income, they really just want to know what's your income, what's your mortgage or your rent, and how long have you been employed, and can we prove all of these things? It's pretty straightforward.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's talk about COVID. You mentioned it. How has that impacted selling real estate?
In the beginning, we all freaked out, like everybody else. We freaked out, and we didn't know what was going to happen. And then we couldn't have open houses, right? And we couldn't go in the houses. So for about 6 weeks, maybe 8 weeks, it was arrested. Everybody kind of went, oh my gosh. And how do we conduct business? And are we going to list houses? And one of the reasons that listings are down is that COVID slowed. Sellers did not want people in their house during the COVID time. So that is one of the things. There were sellers who were going to put their houses on the market, but this happened. Spring, it's our big time. So we started off roaring. We thought it was going to be such a great year for real estate, like spring often is. And then boom, in March.
Okay.
But very
How did you overcome that then? How did you guys overcome that? Or is that still a challenge for you?
It is still a challenge because we lost some business, right? And so all your business in the real estate business too, it takes, but from the time we conduct our business or even negotiate the deal, it could be 6 or 8 or 10 weeks till you finish the deal. Right. So a lot can happen in between here and there. So like anything else, if you had business in the pipeline, then I'm not getting paid for that business now. So because I lost that business, that one of mine, we're still looking. We'll find one eventually. But what happened there was the one who dropped just got nervous and dropped at COVID time, came right back in about 3 weeks later and said, okay, I think it's going to be okay. Let's go look again. And everybody else sort of did at the same time. And we have been in multiple offer situations and haven't been able to win one since. So that's
you were
what
in
occurred.
A holding pattern for a period of time.
Everybody was, and we all came out at the same time. Yeah. But the sellers were still nervous. The buyers, it's all pent up demand. The buyers all across the country, actually, we read about this, pent up demand, but the sellers are all nervous to let people in their houses. It's starting to open up now. I can see more listings. There are more listings coming on. It's another reason why if anybody was considering selling their house at that time or wanted to make a move, now's an excellent time to sell your house because of that pent up demand. To your point about how has it changed, there is that piece about it's going to be interesting to see if I would imagine that it will have a lasting impact on how we live and where we live, COVID, because people definitely, if
you find
the guy
people
who's
are
moving,
leaving the city, or people leaving the city.
The guy who's moving to Newport said he can do, now that he's working from home, he can work from home all the time. So
and why not be at the beach?
Beautiful thing. Amen. Right. Yeah. It's a beautiful thing. We are all taking an assessment of what is absolutely necessary and what do we want to feel fulfilled and happy, and how much is enough, and where do we really want to be. And if you can't do what you did before, like on automatic pilot, and you're forced to just go home for a minute and look at your family or your dog or your grass, you know, you do take a minute to ask, like, is this, if I'm going to be stuck right here, is this it? And I think a lot of people that have been in apartments or smaller spaces or didn't have a yard, suddenly now they see like a yard could be a good thing if I have to be at home all the time.
Yeah,
Or they want to get a
there's
dog.
An increase in divorce.
I have not yet tapped into that side market, but perhaps I need to look there.
Yeah.
Are you okay, Julie? Are you okay?
So that was Julie Williamson. That was really something, wasn't it?
Yeah. Yeah. She's
what a
she's pretty
dynamo.
dynamic. I know. I was
Oh
just
my
gonna
gosh.
say the
Oh
same
my
thing.
gosh. She's
Dynamic.
just like amazing. What knowledge.
Smart.
I'd hire her as my real estate agent.
Yeah.
We'd like to leave you with this quote. Don't wait until you've reached your goal to be proud of yourself. Be proud of every step you take toward reaching your goal.
Nice.
And I think we should. That's living in the present, isn't it?
Yeah.
We're not looking so far in the future. In Julie's business, her compensation is always based on the future.
Mm-hmm.
But I think we all can see by what we've heard from Julie is that she's living a very present moment every day with her customers.
Well, she has to.
Yes.
She has to be very present, you know, with her customers. I mean, it's not like she's planning necessarily for the future. In some ways, it is all about what's happening right there in front of you.
Right.
And changing.
Right.
So she doesn't get compensated until later, but she's having to be on and present throughout. And it's a long period of time. I mean, to be a realtor, I was thinking about that. I mean, you really do give your heart and soul to something.
Oh, I know.
And then you have to wait and someone backs out or it doesn't work out. So
yeah,
you can tell she's great at what she does.
She's really great at what she does. I think she'll be very successful. She's made it past 2 years. She's into her third. She's going to fly.
And we know her personally and she's successful.
Right. It's so true. Well, until the next time, we want you to be well and be safe. Thanks for joining us, and cheers to you, Julie.
Cheers.